morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Līga Sičeva. I'm representing Latvian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Director of EU Project Department. It will be a huge pleasure for me today moderate a webinar about very important and actual topic for nowadays, promoting democracy through cybersecurity and fighting corruption. I know that those huge names sometimes might make for you different emotions, as it's every country of world and Europe, but meanwhile without that we cannot move forward in successfully way. So today we are this webinar we are organizing in the framework of the project Latvia 2, and we are happily in cooperation with Ukrainian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and this project is co-financed by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Republic of Latvia and also Embassy of United States in Kiev, Ukraine. And I would like to give the floor to the first speaker about the topic Cybersecurity Governance of Latvia, Legislative Framework and Resilience Building Measures. The speaker will be Edgars Kiukucāns, Deputy Director General of the National Cybersecurity Center of Latvia, Director of the Cybersecurity Policy Department of the Ministry of Defense of Latvia. The floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Līga, and good morning, everybody. It's my really pleasure to be here, and today I'll be speaking for 20 minutes, so I guess 15 minutes for my presentation, and then also 5 minutes in addition to your questions, if there will be any, and I hope there will be. Today I'll speak about cybersecurity in Latvia, both about the situation in our cyberspace, but also about our resilience measures, what are we doing now, and how we try to build our country more cyber secure. So I'll start with the situation in the Latvian cyberspace. As you can see on the slide, the number of IP addresses at risk throughout the last quarter since 2022, the number has been climbing and then falling a bit, but in general the intensity of cyber attacks has remained really high, and that has been so already since the end of 2021. I think if we compare to Ukraine, the situation here in the cyberspace might be very similar. We are of course not in a conventional war. We are not conventionally attacked, but we are attacked every day by Russian hacktivist groups, APT groups, etc. So as you can see, even though the number of IP addresses at risk has decreased in some of the quarters at the beginning of 2023. Also, the first quarter of 2024 was still at a lower level, but then the second quarter again we have seen quite a big increase. If we look at the specific threats that we are facing, so I think we are not unique in this area. So mostly those are of course quite simple, not too sophisticated attacks, DDoS attacks, for example. Though I must say that we do see DDoS attacks, and I think that's also very similar in Ukraine, as more of a noise than an actual threat. The more concerning threats are of course coming from the APT groups, and that we have seen quite a lot throughout the last years, and also now. Of course, there are break-in attempts. We see a lot of compromised devices, and unfortunately also a very big problem now in Latvia is fraud, and that we see is increasing every month, every year. Just last year it was counted that more than 10 million euros were stolen from the population of Latvia, and unfortunately just in first 9 months of this year there are already more than 10 million euros that have been stolen and from the Latvian people. Here, of course, we see the importance of education, of information campaigns, so that we teach our population how to recognize fraudulent websites, SMSs, emails, etc. So really a huge importance of information campaigns. So, and taking into account the situation, important is to, of course, build the resilience. And building resilience you can do in different ways. As I said already before, one of the things is to raise the awareness of the general population, raise the awareness of company workers, of the employees of the government institutions. But also there are proactive measures, more technical measures that we are offering. And for example, that what you see here on the screen, there are different services that we provide. Some of them are provided by the Ministry of Defense, like for example the centralized DDoS protection or local internet exchange, but most of them are provided by CertLV. Important to say that this is available to all government institutions, municipalities, but also those who are the subjects of the national cybersecurity law. So basically the essential and important service providers, and to them all of this is available free of charge. Which means that they can use these services, and CertLV will provide them to in due time. CertLV is the national cyber incident response institution in Latvia, and is responsible for basically all of the Latvian ICT infrastructure except for the military infrastructure, for what we have a separate cert, MilCertLV. As I mentioned before, the communication activities, that is something of very big importance, and already since the war in Ukraine started, since the Russian aggression to Ukraine, we automatically saw also a very big increase in the number of attacks, and when we saw that something is going in the direction of a really increased cyber activity in our cyberspace, so we started to organize sectoral seminars. We provided checklists for all the government institutions, municipalities, with things that they should ensure in order to be as resilient as possible. Also, we are providing regular warnings through CertLV, through their social media, through letters. We exchange information about vulnerabilities. We have also a platform together with the experts from all around Latvia, from different sectors, where they can exchange information about potential threats, potential vulnerabilities, and this really helps a lot, that there is this public and private consultation forum, very technical one, but we also try, of course, to do this at a policy level as well. For example, when we are coming out with new legislation, new cabinet regulations, for example, we always try to consult with our partners from the private sector, and also if we come out with new legislation, like for example the new national cybersecurity law, we try to communicate as much as possible. So for example, throughout September we organized 9 different seminars for all the different sectors that are the subjects of the new national cybersecurity law, to inform them about the new regulation, what are the rules, what are the things that they must ensure in their own organizations. As in one of the examples, we also created a national cybersecurity law test, where the potential subjects, they can check, they can answer to simple questions, and they can find out if they are a subject or not. So if they have the obligation to fulfill all the provisions of the law or not. So this is just one of the examples how we try to communicate actively. For example, which is a good thing also, is that cybersecurity as a topic becomes more and more interesting to different organizations, both public and private. For example, in our seminars that we organized in September, we counted that more than 1,500 participants took part in those seminars, which is for the size of our country is quite a lot. So we see that there is this interest also from the private sector as well. And that is important because we see cybersecurity as an integral part of the comprehensive national defense, which means that every organization, every individual has a role to play in defending our country, be it in a physical, conventional space, or is it cyberspace. So it means that by building your own resilience, you also build the resilience of the whole of the state as a whole. Also, what I wanted to mention, that we just have created our own National Cybersecurity Center, which is in the Ministry of Defense. So the center is the central organization in Latvia. If you look at the cybersecurity, so we are responsible at this center for both the policy making, policy implementation, monitoring the compliance with national minimum security requirements, implementation of different EU directives and regulations, but also then on the CERT-LV part, they're responsible for cybersecurity incident handling. We are now creating security operation centers in all public data centers, but also in the critical ICT infrastructure. But also, as I said, we are trying to build a community, and for that we have created the National Coordination Center, which works together with other national coordination centers in the European Union, and we have created a cybersecurity community. And in this community, we register different organizations, both public, private sector, universities, state institutions, etc. So when we try to disseminate all the information that relates to cybersecurity, both about different activities that we do, about legislation, but also about the possibilities to get EU funding for their own projects through this community. And so far we have more than 50 organizations taking part, and we see that this has become quite a successful format. So, and very big part of our job is also to implement the EU legislation, and I think that's also quite relevant for Ukraine as a future EU member state, which means that of course all the directives have to be implemented also in their national legislation. And here in the cybersecurity, the big word is NIS2, which is Network Information Security Directive. I will not go into details because this is terribly boring, but in general, this directive talks about compliance and reporting obligations, about cyber risk management, and about the supervision of all the subjects. Subjects in this sense are all the organizations, essential, important service providers that have to implement in their organizations the provisions of the directive and also of the national cybersecurity law, which is quite new. It just entered into force from 1st of September, and is I would say the most central legislation part that we have in Latvia, and it covers a lot of different aspects, starting from all the technical things that organizations have to implement, up to different centralized cybersecurity solutions that we are providing, like DDoS protection, DNS firewall, and also it clearly defines the role of the National Cybersecurity Center. And my last one is a bit more in detail about the NCCLV, which is the National Coordination Center, which is the as we try to build it, the central information exchange platform on cybersecurity. So, and here we are dealing with different things, starting from Digital Europe, which is an EU funding program. So we are providing grants for small and medium enterprises. And here we have organized already several grant programs. Then, as I said, also it is the official Latvian cybersecurity competence community. We try to organize regular events where we discuss different topics, like, for example, cybersecurity education. We come together with the community. We try to find new solutions. We try to understand what can we do better. And of course, it's also it works with promotion and improvement of formal and informal cybersecurity education. I think I will stop here. I will give you the opportunity to ask questions if you have any. I'm open to answer to any questions. Thanks.
Dear participants, I'm quite happy to see that there is quite a lot of you. Feel free to give a voice or write the questions in the chat, and I will read them and we will try to answer to all your questions. Additionally, while there's some silence, I would like to give some questions from my side to Edgars about funds. You mentioned that you have a commune of cybersecurity experts, and you have people who are working in this field from different organizations, and also you share information what kind of available funds you have it. My question to you is, Ukrainian organizations, both IT associations, cybersecurity organizations, business support organizations, public organizations, do they also have opportunities to apply for European Union funds via Digital Europe or other programs? How it works, or do you have this information?
Well, I wouldn't say I'm a huge expert on this, but as far as I know, unfortunately, the part of the Digital Europe that is related to cybersecurity is dedicated only to EU member states. I think there are quite many parts of the Digital Europe program that are more related to digital transformation that are also open to partner countries, but unfortunately this part of cybersecurity is unfortunately not.
Okay, but maybe some other funds which are open for Ukrainian organizations, because so far I know that LIFE program, who takes care about sustainability in Europe, is already moving forward for opening opportunities also for Ukrainian organizations.
Well, at this stage, I'm I'm expert more in the cybersecurity field, so that's my primary area of expertise.
But maybe in cybersecurity fields there's also other funds as well.
Of course, Horizon Europe, for example. I know it should be available, but I also don't want to lie.
It's available. Horizon Europe is available. Yes.
So I'm not sure. In general, Horizon Europe is a more is a program more dedicated to R&D. So that should be available as far as I know, as you also confirmed. So I would say that this is the part where you could look more into research area. I think that's and I'm sure Ukraine has a lot to offer also on the research part in cybersecurity.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. So at the moment I'm not seeing questions in the chat, and nobody is giving a voice for that. But sorry, not sorry, Edgars. I have one more question for you. I know that you spoke a lot that there's support for small and medium enterprises via programs, that there's a commune who takes care about cybersecurity. Meanwhile, just your vision, does business support organizations like chambers, sectoral associations also has a role here in this topic?
Well, absolutely. I think it's always very good that companies come together in associations because I think they have a lot more voice, a louder voice, I would say so, when they can speak together, when they come to, for example, if we as a Ministry of Defense or National Cybersecurity Center, if we come with some, for example, legislative initiatives. First of all, for us it's much easier to talk with few associations than with, you know, hundreds of separate companies. That's why we always encourage, of course, to go to your association and come with a common opinion together, and I think that works quite well. I think so far we have, especially when we are drafting the national cybersecurity law, I think we were in communication with a lot of different associations from different different areas, from different sectors, and I think that is always always very good that they come together and speak in one voice.
Okay, thank you. So this is encouragement also for Ukrainian business support organizations to step into the topic, as you are representing your sectoral company's interests or general company interest of Ukraine. But we are happily receiving first question from your side, and I will read it at the moment. Dear Edgars, is there any way to stage a cooperation with National Aviation University in terms of cybersecurity and operational awareness?
Yeah, thanks for the question. Well, of course, I cannot give you an answer right away, but of course, if you have concrete ideas how and what you would like to discuss together, or what projects you would like to implement together, you can write an email to me. I think the organizers will provide my email address to you, and just write me an email, and we can discuss how is it possible to cooperate.
Okay, so if thank you for your answer so far. If you don't have no more questions, then I would like to say a huge thank you, Edgars, for this very interesting presentation, how in Latvia we're taking care about cybersecurity and what kind of European Union regulations we are using and opportunities are also using for our cybersecurity in our country, as this is a highly hot topic in nowadays, and as you might hear that already 10 million euros have annually lost due to the gaps and vulnerable spaces of cybersecurity. I think this is a huge numbers for economy of Latvia. So one more time, thank you, Edgars. So with next speaker, I would like to invite Elvis Bogdanovs from company Versaltel board. I'm sorry, LTD Versaltel. Elvis is board member of the company, and his topic will be cyber threat trends and what to do with them. And I think this is a very interesting presentation from company's perspective, because quite often we are speaking about, like, you know, regulations, general like visions, and yes, cybersecurity is topic, but now it's like really like case of the company, and what's actually, I would like to say, topic on the ground, like really on real life. Okay, Elvis, the floor is yours.
Yes, hello. It's a pleasure to speak to our colleagues from Ukraine. Today I will talk a little bit about cyber threats and trends, not only of course in Latvia, but what we see globally. It's always an issue because we always must adapt, and nobody stays, and cyber criminals, I would say, they're always far away ahead because they have no limits of their possibilities. Just briefly about me, except I not only work private, but I work in law enforcement. For last 4 years I work in Latvian Central Criminal Police Cybercrime Unit. Additionally, I like to give lectures about open source intelligence, digital forensics, and mostly I read to the people from the law enforcement agencies, but sometimes for the private sector. About the overview, I have set up a little overview of what I think is the most main threats Often when I read some cyber threats reports, I see that most people say that it's ransom, but I would say it's a phishing attacks because initial attack vector most often will be the phishing attack, and sometimes they don't use any advanced malware. Second, of course, is always ransomware because it's very distractive, and we know that sometimes, especially in Ukraine, they don't use mostly not only ransomware, but for example, it's called distractionware. The idea is not to ask for the money, but only to destroy the data, to disrupt the business processes. Data breaches, it's of course one of the main sources, because everybody registers with companies' data somewhere. Those websites often are targeted because they are good source for the initial attack vectors, and of course we as ourselves register always in some websites, and again these websites get breached. Disinformation, maybe initially people would say that disinformation is mostly a government issue, but I would say not really, because if we look globally, we have cases where we see that with the disinformation there have been attempts to damage financial reports. The most nearest what I can remember is Germany with a Tesla Gigafactory, that there, at least on a professional level, is rumored that some of the disinformation was used to make these protests and stop the Tesla factory. And the last one is botnets. Because we will discuss a little bit later, you need somewhere to get the data, and often if you cannot breach the websites, you try to infect them as much computers and as much systems as you can to steal the information. Phishing attacks, I really enjoy them because often you see very high level of creativity that they use. Most common is email phishing. By the latest reports, you can see that the typical spam is decreased, and mostly if you get a phishing email, you can consider it in two ways. One is it's mass send, and second one it's targeted. In second place is social media phishing. We've seen it a lot with fake recruitment scams. Sometimes you see, for example, advertisement of some products, and you think that it's mostly, it concerns like end user, not company, but everybody works somewhere, and some of the people are in like key value assets for the company, for example accountant, and if they are able with simple social engineering attacks to make accountant to log in their bank account, for example in Latvia, often what happens is you can see your private account, and if you're linked you see company account, and you can imagine that company account mostly will have more money than your private account, and the scammers try to steal all the money that they're able to do. In Latvia, biggest steal was, if I'm correct, 1.4 million euros, and it's a lot if you're thinking about it. So it works. So even if it's not directly targeted at the company, there's always some risks. And last one is smishing. So again, mostly smishing is used for the end users, but if we're looking on targeted social engineering attacks, they can include some references, for example, to Microsoft that you need to log in, etc., etc. And people sometimes tend to lower their cybersecurity awareness when it comes to the mobile phones. So this is a risk. One of my favorite scams that shows that I'm popular in internet, that you get recruitment and invitation requests from people that you don't know, and you cannot imagine from where. Initially, most of them are very poorly made. They create fake identities, use a deepfake technology if we are talking about interviewing. Too common is initial business partnership for some projects, investments, etc. And second and most damaging one is recruitment. Often they try to recruit IT staff of the company And the main idea is to make them execute some malicious code on their computers. And imagine if one of your main IT personnel is trying to find a new job, and often admins don't have a maximum level of privileges on their computers, and they know, of course, they have tons of credentials on their computers, so it's a great way. And I would say the fintech companies are very keen to be targeted by these types of attacks. Some time ago I worked on a case where we asked the question how they find the data, and one of the examples of reconnaissance was they were doing, it's called Google dorking or advanced Google searching techniques. So basically they were searching specific types of files, for example Excels or CSV files that contain some information about company name, email and positions. When we did a joint operation with an Europol, for example, we have found specifically tailored virtual private servers that were only used for this reconnaissance. And what they do, they scrape data from your website. They search any type of information that website can relate to the employees or your partners. Then they, of course, buy data leaks, and of course after that they try to find you and your employees in LinkedIn. This is one of the most rudimentary attacks. It's a classic phishing attack that comes about confirming some kind of email and details. It's easy to spot, but the issue with these types of attacks is if you see that it's tailored, that means somebody is targeting you. And there is this called next generation account takeover. If initially these phishing attacks try to use your credentials, we have got smarter. We now mostly have some kind of multi-factor authentication, passwordless authorization, etc. And what they do, they try to steal sessions. That means that they can mimic legitimate user, and in this way, this means that anti-phishing and intrusion systems mostly won't see the difference between the hacker and the initial user. What I like about the phishing, as I told, is thinking outside of the box. Less and less phishing attacks contain some kind of attachments, directly attachments. Mostly now they contain some kind of links. Even as in this great image, once I made an obvious phishing email and added a button, report phishing, and this button was a phishing button. So you can imagine that the ideas what you can do is very vast. About the ransomware, for example, when I read the SpyCloud ranks, they rank this threat as #1, and mostly what I see in the work, the main attack is made on the insurance companies. It's I agree that it's told that it's 6 times more prone to get a cyber attack than any other type of company. Second place goes to the healthcare, manufacturing, hospitality, and travel and tourism. When you ask about why would be in for example insurance, because imagine how many details they have, how many information about the companies they have. So it's a good source not only to ransom the money, but to get the data which I can use later on, for example, to sell in darknet markets, or for example for myself to make additional attacks. About how they mostly attack, I would say it's 3 types. It's remote connection. Basically they have some way to connect to your computer. The second one is virtual private network, that they are able to access your network. And second is web shell. That means that they have some kind of command line interface to your system. And from this, approximately 26% is domain privilege, credentials with high level privilege. That means that they can execute and do the lateral movement more quicker into your system. I always wondered how much it costs. And for example, if you're looking at a mediocre company, it costs maybe $2,000 to $3,000, for example, for a high value target. Some companies cost, for example, $500–600 if they see that it's not for example, with a high turnover. I myself have seen recently that they have now started to showing what type of antivirus systems or some kind of protection systems these companies has on their infrastructure. This shows that even if you have antivirus, some kind of detection tools, not all the time they have been configured or they are working in the manner that they should. This is a screenshot from Russian, I would say mostly it's Russian forums, in where they are, for example, trying to sell initial accesses. Average time, for example, to sell this access is 1 to 3 days. It of course depends. Before that, when it comes to the getting inside of the system, it took maybe on a persistence level few months that they were analyzing the system, seeing what you're doing with what you're talking. Nowadays I would say it's less than 30 days from initial access to full ransom and a negotiation with the victims. So they are becoming more as taking on a more mass, and it's more, I would say, not described but explained by that more and more people are declining to pay the ransom, and this is the results of this. About supply chain attacks, what I did, I tried to find some leaked credentials of Ukrainian company, and I found marketing agency, 50 employees. I found that they have clients in the fields of apartment rent, flight companies, medical field, and e-commerce. And from 15 results I had, 14 were relevant enough that I could use later on, and the contents were email, passwords, names, and sources. What I could do, for example, with this marketing agency is mostly I wouldn't try to ransom them. I would impersonate them to contact to their clients, and this is the most scariest part. Sometimes you can be secure, do the cyber awareness trainings, etc., but it doesn't mean that your, for example, partner is secure enough. That's why, for example, some of the companies ask some kind of proof that you have some ISO certification or cyber awareness training, etc. And as one of the main topics for this webinar is corruption, what I would like to say is insider threats. Mostly now in Telegram you can find channels where you get offered percentage or a specific sum for selling your credentials in the company you work for. Mostly people who work in that company, they don't do that, but people that have recently left the company and with not on a good terms, they may do this. And mostly we can ask a question: how often the IT employees after leaving the company still have access to some systems? I would say very often, because, for example, main thing is Wi-Fi network, corporate Wi-Fi. Not every time it gets changed after somebody leaves the company. There are cases when even emails are still active because there are some crucial things that are sent to that email and nobody tried to forward it to different emails. So it's a risk. It works. And the last one, of course, is data theft. Often I see people that leave the company, they take with them, for example, they're part of the client data. They think that they are the owner of the data because they have brought these clients to the company. Of course it's not, they get paid for that, it's their job, but they still think it's their data, and the issue is that they just take it away and sometimes even destroy the initial data. About some of the social engineering scams that probably in Ukraine you can find when you try to work on the import on or export field. One of my favorite is fake online store scam. The idea is, for example, you try to buy construction work equipment, and it's often I see these types of websites. You get lower prices for specific products. These websites mostly work in some geolocated regions. It's mainly because they don't want to work in the regions that they are afraid of that they could get caught, or for example their monuments or infrastructure is in these regions. As you can see, this is seen in the code. Mostly nobody does this, but if we're starting to investigate potential partners, I would always suggest to do due diligence. And I did a due diligence in 2 minutes, and what I found, this reseller of equipment is only 5 months old, and they told that they are a very old company. In the same code and style and data that they provide, there were 3 other domains that I found. All were lifespan was mostly 4 and 5 months. So this means, imagine if it's a good company, why did it only exist for 4 or 5 months? And visiting different sites, I get that it's already they are disabled. Of course, what you can see, they try to do as a legitimate company some marketing, and I still found their YouTube accounts where I can see how they try to offer their equipment. So as you see, it's very common, and in Latvia I would say a year we have few large cases like this when you get some of the companies scammed and not getting the products, and often you can see some relevance even in import schemes. For example, you try to import even retail products, so it doesn't matter what they sell. You must always like do some due diligence on the company. The next one is what I always like to say is you must always think about the company's infrastructure. In this case, I did a quick run on the company's external network, and I found that the people that work in the company what's related to manufacturing were downloading, for example, 3D Max, CorelDRAW, and software like that. Initially, maybe it's not unharmful, but I try to look torrent statistics, for example, who are the biggest distribution countries, and I found the source. And next thing what I could do after I find the source is I do the malware analysis. It's not proper analysis, but still it shows initial identifications of possible malware, and this means that there's a possibility that these malwares won't work on simple computers, but when they see the indications that you're in corporate network, they will start to steal your data, because one of the main sources for the ransomwares where they get the data now, it's called info stealers. So it's a very good passive way how you can steal the information from the clients. I decided to do the same for Ukraine. I found a development, research and production company, and again, what I see, AutoCAD, and this was the most concerning, Windows Server. So when you try to download the software like that, there's always issue that you could get automatically some kind of malware with it, and it means that even if you set clean infrastructure, it's always compromised. And in the end, I will be short because my time is basically up, is about my recommendations. When you consider cybersecurity, separate cybersecurity budget from IT infrastructure budget, because it's not still common for us even, but it's one of things that we are going to, in which direction we are going, that it's a separate budget, and you always must think about it. And next step is buying expensive systems isn't the solution for all your issues, because in the end it all depends on a human interaction. That's why even I've seen when you have very expensive anti-malware, anti-phishing systems, but they even haven't been configured. So don't believe everything that some of the people try to sell you. Procedures. For example, if we are talking about accountants, there always must be some kind of type of procedures that verifies the transaction before it's made, like 4i principle. Backups. it sounds funny, but I've seen many companies in where backupping system doesn't work properly. So be aware of that. Sometimes, at least once a year, try to simulate the backup recovery, check it if it works, think about your redundancy policy, etc. And of course, remember that it's not single goal to be secure. You cannot, it's a continuous process. This means you must always try to do your best and never stop in becoming more safer and protect your company. Last one from me, probably I would say that over 70% of malware attacks go after specific target. So if you find some strange malware, that means probably you have been targeted. And knowing the cyber situation in Ukraine, I would say that we have few options who could that be, and this means that you must always be vigilant. And I know that Ukrainian CERT works very proactively, and never be afraid to ask questions and contact your national level institutions. That's all from me.
Thank you very much, Elvi, about this very great presentation. Participants of webinar, you are welcome to give questions at this moment. Meanwhile, I have a short question to Elvis about Wi-Fi. As we all are quite involved in international business and traveling quite a lot, and sometimes we need to spend quite an hours in airports. What's about airport Wi-Fi? How safe it's to use it in airports?
Oh, I would say like this: I don't use it at all. I don't trust anything that's free. There's some catch. So. Of course, you always must believe that they are doing their best to protect, etc., etc. But I'm avoiding everything that has public access. It's of course my opinion. I would suggest to use VPN and for the privacy privacy layer, and not always you can be sure that it's airport's Wi-Fi. For example, I can hotspot in an airport and call it Air Baltic free Wi-Fi giveaway, etc. And you see, oh, it's Air Baltic free Wi-Fi. Okay, let's connect to that. So you must always consider when it comes to public spaces, do I really need to connect to the public Wi-Fi? Mostly, I would say, please avoid it. If you can't, please try to be not discoverable in that network and to use a VPN. But initially, personally for me, I try to avoid. And about not only airports, the same goes to the hotels. Yeah, the same goes for the hotels.
Additional question: is it safe enough to share the internet via my mobile phone when I'm making my phone as a personal hotspot?
I would say it's safer than Wi-Fi. And second, often people lack in the difficulty of the passwords of the hotspot. They make it very easy, you know, for make
1, 2, 3, 4.
yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. You need 6 symbols. Okay, from 1 to 6. So try to make it a little bit complex, and it should be fine.
Okay, so thank you very much for your great presentation, and I would like to say quite practical one. I would like to suggest also everybody consider these very expensive services which sometimes are provided by the companies, that it's not only about buying these applications, but also to make configurations for your company, computers, homepages, and so on, because you know it's quite simple. That I'm always making a joke: if you are buying a book but you are not reading it correctly, then where's the point? And this is a case about those great platforms and tools. So be aware to not only investing but also correctly using them to protect your company, to protect your people, protect your data, because losses might be more than millions on not only. Okay, so thank you once more, Elvis, for your great presentation, and I would like to step by step invite to next speaker what we have. So the name of next speaker, we have Vitaly Shevchenko from the company Corporate Solutions. The name of the presentation will be "The organization is only safe with trained employees. CloudStudy, effective tool for e-learning management." And here I can fully admit that I'm always saying that lifelong learning is the main topic for sustainable development, and not only sustainable in environment topics, but sustainable by general development of the person, of the organization, and of the country. So if you are you want to be competitive, and if you want to be safe and trained employees is a main investment what you should consider in your company and organization. So now I would like to say, Vitalis, the floor is yours.
Thank you for the introduction. Hi, my name is Vitalis, and as already said, I represent company Corporate Solutions, which is based in Latvia and is one of the larger Latvian IT companies with very wide range of services and products. So today I would like to speak on one very particular topic, which is the cyber hygiene or cybersecurity awareness, which is sometimes really crucial for the complete cybersecurity system in the organization. So let's begin with some numbers. We all love numbers, don't we? Here are some statistics on the dashboard. A lot of emails being sent daily, billions of emails. Altogether, if I remember correctly, it's about 300 billion emails sent, and over half of them is spam and phishing emails. And according to one of the studies made by Ernst & Young, 90% of all the companies being surveyed admit that cybersecurity is one of the highest, one of the risks with highest importance, well, being already admitted in 2019. So during those 5 years, this risk has been growing, and we can see that there have been about 35 million security incidents related to phishing already in 2023, and the numbers are rising dramatically. And this is also been affected with the situation on our east and your north. What I would like to pay extra attention on these numbers is that 83% of the organizations have been victims of some kind of phishing attack during the last year, 83%. And only 37% of the company CEOs have been thinking about performing cybersecurity studies, cybersecurity trainings into the organization, meaning it's less than a half of the organization which are being attacked are thinking of performing training for the employees. And as said previously, stolen data can make millions of losses. On average, it's 5.3 million of losses of each incident of data loss, which is associated with lawyers, of the backupping of data, of losing customers, etc. So the average number of a data loss accident in dollars is $5.3 million. And you may think, why are those attacks still successful, and why are people still failing the phishing attacks? Well, the answer is pretty simple. These attacks are very cheap and easy to execute, meaning one can perform hundreds of attacks per second with a list of users. And those attacks are becoming more and more intelligent and more advanced. I believe most of you have experienced some kind of phishing attack during the last 6 months, and we all understand that most of us do understand what is phishing and how to not fail in this phishing attack. But the problem is that we suppose that all our employees are as much educated and as much computer literate as we are, but at the end of the day, the bad thing, the problem is that they aren't. And even in mass media, in press, we have daily incidents reported, both in Latvia and worldwide, with company money being stolen by phishing attack performed on, for instance, company's accountant. For instance, in Latvia, half a year ago, there was an accident when spear phishing attack was performed on the accountant of medium-sized company in Latvia, which in the end of the day costed 150,000 euro for the company. Well, the other reason why attacks are successful is that people trust the internet, trust other people on the internet, people trust the emails they are being they have received, and people are also often mix work and home, and they often input the work email for some personal occasions, and so for some personal stuff. For instance, they buy stuff on Amazon and put their work email, and when they receive an email from Amazon on their work account, they suppose it's real, and they just click the spoofed internet address link, and their data is being stolen. There are two main things what we can done, and what we can do in our company to increase to decrease the level of the risk from the phishing attacks. And first of all, it's training the employees and educating the employees on very simple from one point of view, but from other point of view significantly important things. And the other thing is implementing the cyber hygiene or cyber security culture into the organization, meaning when you receive a spam email, you understand it's a spam email, you don't click the links, you don't open the email, you don't put any of your personal data in the web forms. But other important thing is to let the IT guys know that you have received one of those emails, and if you by yourself just close that email, it's half of the deal. The other half is reporting that email that it's a phishing attack, so that the IT guys, the cybersecurity guys in your organization can block the sending domain and adds new rule to the firewall. There are various kinds of phishing attacks. Still, the most popular is a general phishing, like the very massive phishing attacks to all the email address the cyber criminals know. But you must be aware that there are some other ways of phishing in place, and one of the types with growing popularity is voice phishing, when you're being called on the phone and asked to do something. And if you're talking about this specific type of phishing attacks that nowadays is very popular, and all of us are receiving some junk and spam calls. The bad thing is that the bad thing about the technology and about the artificial intelligence is that our voice nowadays can be cloned. And if 2 years ago I've received a voice phishing call from someone who I totally understood that is fraud, I could speak for like half an hour just to get the time passed, and so they don't call other people's. Nowadays, when I receive call from such cyber criminals, I immediately put my phone down, because I understand that in 30 seconds they can clone my voice and call my relatives or my friends or my colleagues with my voice, which isn't totally identical, but still is pretty similar to my own voice. On this basis, we have already performed an MVP product, which is phishing simulation, and we've done a product which is sending out voicemails to Telegram and WhatsApp with a cloned voice of a manager or a colleague of into the organization. But we haven't still launched it because some shady risks associated with that. Yep, so the big question is how to protect your organization and what to do about the phishing attacks being regularly performed, and what is your duty, and what can you do next. First of all, of course, it's the anti-phishing software. These are the firewalls, the spam filters, the phishing filters being deployed on your Exchange servers or email servers, which mostly do the work. Well, nowadays the technologies are pretty much advanced, and about 90% of the spam emails are being blocked already on the server level, and users don't receive those emails on their computer in the Exchange, on the Microsoft Exchange clients. But as I already told, there are 160 billion spam emails sent daily, and if 90% of them is blocked, 10% is still being sent and delivered to the end user. So basically, anti-phishing software alone doesn't do the job, and as mentioned on the topic of my presentation, one of the crucial things about performing cybersecurity culture into the organization is training your employees. In Europe, we have the NIC2 directive being present, and local regulations also being implemented in Latvia this year, telling that the bigger part of the companies in Latvia have to perform some actions regarding the employee training on the cybersecurity topic. And those trainings have to be regular. Once again, we are pretty computer literate, we are smart people here, but we shouldn't suppose that all our employees and all the people around us are as smart. We do have to make mandatory cybersecurity trainings for the employees, because at the end of the day, our employees is our last barrier in cybersecurity defense. One of the interesting facts and interesting benchmarks is that if we have 1,000 users in the company, 3 of them will have the password QWERTY123. 3 users per 1,000. And getting a list of 1,000 employees is pretty easy. You just check the LinkedIn and put the name.surname at company's domain and get 1,000 attempts with password QWERTY123. 3 of them will go through. So educating people on very simple, from one point of view, topics would make the deal. And if users would use stronger passwords, if users won't connect to the airport Wi-Fi's, and if users won't get failed on phishing emails, I would say that your last defense barrier is stable, and you're good to go. And also, what is very important to remember is that implementation of cybersecurity culture into your organization is also crucial. It's not just about understanding that there's a cybersecurity incident inside the organization, but also reporting it. And if I have some minutes left, I would like to very briefly jump through our cybersecurity awareness and training solution, if I may. And what we are doing. So just a quick case study about one of our customers with almost 2,000 users, which has implemented the e-learning platform for the occasion, starting with cybersecurity training, but afterwards adding other courses and other training materials. They have spent already almost 20,000 hours last year in e-learning, and the good benchmark is 1 hour spent in e-learning equals to 2 hours spent in personal learning. So basically what they have done last year, they have cut costs of 2,000 human hours to 20,000 human hours, which is 10 human years, and it's quite a big number. Regarding our cybersecurity awareness solution, we have it's an international product, and it's already localized in 9 languages. and being used pretty widely in Europe, in Balkan region, in France, in Germany, and also in the Middle Asia, in Uzbekistan. We have very interactive animated content for 11 topics which are crucial for everyday life. People can watch those topics one by one when they have some free time, and it's based on micro learning concept, meaning each content element is no longer than 10 minutes. So we do get into this attention span, which is 15 minutes, and well, yeah. Afterwards, when the trainings are made, we perform the phishing simulation. We've spoofed many domains worldwide, including like paymypal.org or accountsafety.link or linked.ln and so on. And we check whether the users react on those phishing simulation emails, and we understand what is the failure ratio, and if the user fails, and if the user opens the website and puts some data inside the website. Afterwards, we advise to perform additional learning to those users. And at the end of the day, of course, we provide them possibility to report those phishing incidents, and the IT guys are having very understandable and clear statistics over the fail ratio, the click ratio on the phishing simulation emails sent. The good benchmark would be that educated people in the organization would fall at around 5 to 6% per organizations, but for some of the customers for whom we performed the phishing simulation prior to the cybersecurity training, the failure ratio was around 40%, which is dramatically high. So at the end of the day, remember just two things. Please think about educating and training your employees on simple topics, and please perform some actions on implementing the cyber hygiene culture into your organization, and don't let the cybersecurity incidents not be reported to the IT department of the organizations. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your presentation. So far we have received in chats some questions, comments, but unfortunately it's a full respect, but we are not speaking here in Ukrainian, and so it's even impossible for me to read them. So if there's some reasonable questions for our speakers, then please give a voice in English. If not, then we can go and move forward with the next speaker. Yes, but from my side, I would like to share a short story about crazy situation. Why I would like to encourage to train your people. As we have a international organization, Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and we are active internationally. Of course, we quite often receive different kind of emails, also from spam and phishing and so on. But the funniest part is that when I received an email in Latvian from my CEO, Mrs. Jānis Enziņš, who is like inviting me for important meeting with important conversation about some kind of challenging topics. Normally, I know that he is always calling or writing me via WhatsApp, but how it can be that I'm receiving the email from him, and in such a kind of important language, you know. Sometimes you can feel even energy via email. And at the end of the day, I start to think, no, it cannot be he. And I really double check the email from which I received this email, and it was not my boss. It was some kind of spam person. So it means that sometimes you can receive really, you know, emails who really looks like your colleague or your boss or your family relative. But please start with checking at least the email address from which the email is coming. So, but this is and of course most of the people from the chamber receive so-called funny emails, and of course we share those emails to the IT department. We which already checked the threats and so on, so we were in safe zone anyway. But yeah, you never know from which side you can receive what kind of information, who is actually the threat for your computer, for your data, for your personal information. So, and now we are step by step moving to the next topic of this webinar, what's connected with fighting corruption. Because here, if we are speaking about corruption, I'm always saying that we need to start with ourselves. Otherwise, it won't work out. And of course, the topic is quite diverse and difficult, because when sometimes I was started to explore the topic about corruption, from my point of view, it was like, oh, okay, it's just when I'm giving money for some public person in huge amounts, but to giving a chocolate or a good drink to my doctor, it's not corruption. Actually, is this everything what I mentioned previously in second ago is actually all kind of types of corruption, and they are much more. So therefore, deeping more deeper, and actually corruption is destroying more or less economics and relationships between quality of services. So, and if we are speaking about European Union, we are fighting very much against corruption, and to do things in transparent way, because this can ensure the economical development of the region as such. So, and now I would like to give a floor to the next speaker, Inta Nole, the Corruption Prevention and Combating Bureau, Chief Inspector of Corruption Prevention and Combating Bureau of Latvia. Inta, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Inta Nole. It's a pleasure to present the Corruption Prevention and Combating Bureau of Latvia. And I could say, let's talk about how to combat corruption through cooperation. Corruption always involves at least two parties, givers and takers, and therefore we must work equally with both parties involved, both with public officials who engage in corruption as bribe takers, and with businessmen who are the other party involved in corrupt activities. If the businessmen agree not to give any benefits, then the beneficiaries from the public sector will not be able to take anything either. Therefore, we can only fight corruption through cooperation. This means that in addition to operational and investigative work, preventive actions are an integral part in order to identify the causes of the problem and more precisely determine specific measures to work with both the private and public sectors. KNAB release on data, including various surveys, measurements, indexes. Every year, KNAB conducts a public opinion survey in which, among other things, the question is asked whether businessmen and citizens in general have used various soft or informal techniques. Informal techniques in this context are mutual acquaintance, presents, and informal payments. As you can see on this slide, about 1/5 of respondents still admit that they have used such techniques. This means that even in this, on the one hand, innocent communication, there is a risk of corruption because everything starts small. In Latvia, public officials are not allowed to accept presents or informal payments, but as the survey data show, people use them, so that means that the officials accept them. Another indicator asked in the survey is a readiness to give a bribe to a public official. In this way, if in this way the businessman or citizen could solve their problem. And as you can see, still 20% have expressed a theoretical readiness to solve their problems with the help of bribe. Corruption Perception Index by Transparency International. KNAB analyzes not only the overall CPI tendencies, but also separate indicators, especially the ones touching upon business. For example, the dynamics of evaluation of the World Economic Forum and others. Eurobarometer data is also being used to identify problems and to plan prevention and combating of corruption. So these are some topics we are analyzing. The Latvian regulatory framework, the criminal law, provides for criminal liability not only for a person who has taken and given a bribe or acted as an intermediary in bribery, but also for a legal entity. Companies can be divided into two large groups. In one group, the owner of the company also manages the company himself. The other group, the company is managed by a paid employee, the manager of company. In the second case, company owners often do not even know what is happening, that someone from their company has bribed a public official in Latvia or maybe even outside of Latvia. In Latvia, criminal liability is provided for failure to report economic crimes. Corruption is also an economic crime. This means that accountants, financiers, lawyers, and others can also be prosecuted if they do not report signs of corruption or fraud to the competent authorities. Liability of a legal entity. What that means? As I mentioned it before, companies should expect that in the case of corruption, the responsibility of a legal entity will be also assessed, and a penalty for legal entity is provided for this. A legal person is also criminally liable in cases where an employee has thought of bribing a public official in the interests of the company. This means that the punishment for the corrupt activities will be both for the persons involved in the corruption and also for the legal entity. Legal entity is in whose interests the bribe is given. The most frequently imposed punishment for a legal entity in Latvia is a fine, but as you can see, it can be confiscation, it can be restriction of rights, for example, participate in public procurement, and also liquidation of company. How to fight corruption in the private sector? In our opinion, an effective tool is the fight against corruption carried out by company itself. By analyzing the risks of corruption and choosing effective countermeasures, a change in thinking and attitude in the company can be achieved. It is important to educate employees and ensure that they can recognize corruptive activities. Yes, that means more expenses, but it is, as I mentioned, in our opinion, it is an effective tool. The main elements of this internal anti-corruption fight are trainings, employees are informed and know how and when to act when encountering corrupt behavior. Secure reporting mechanism. In Latvia, all companies with more than 50 employees must have an internal whistleblowing system, as stipulated by the whistleblowing law. Implementation of 4I's principle to exclude individual actions on an employee, and to review of internal documents, review the internal bonus system. Whether a bonus, for example, a concluded contract does not encourage the willingness of the employees involved to bribe those on whom the conclusion of the contract depends. So that's all from my side. This was very shortly how we can combat corruption in private companies through cooperation.
Thank you very much for your presentation. As it was clearly visible during the whole presentations that actually everything is go step by step and comes actually from ourselves. So if you want to stop corruption in your own country or in your environment, you should give great presence to the potential public persons or public service providers, and then you will already start to stop it. So as the next speaker, I would like to invite Inese Tauriņa, Transparency International Latvia Executive Director, about the topic the role of CSOs in strengthening democracy by promoting transparency and fighting corruption. And yeah, Inta Nola, thank you very much for your presentation, and I think as a strengthening democracy by promoting transparency and fighting corruption is really a strong sentence to take into consideration, as we also sometimes received some kind of country evaluation reports and topics about how the things are going on in Latvia or in other country. Is it safe to do business? And then in those reports we can see what is level of democracy or corruption in the country, and then companies sometimes start to think, do they want to do business, or do they want to do EU-funded projects in concrete country, when the reports are saying that, hey, there is a high level of corruption. Because I also personally, when we are deciding in our team to do some EU-funded project proposals, we are quite evaluating also to which countries we are going on in the proposal for future EU-funded projects, because as you might know, EU-funded programs are very looking for high transparency of the funds and very looking into the partners which provide services and really are willing to avoid double financing and these kind of problems. So country reports is highly important for attracting investors and international businesses. So then we again need to start with ourselves to decrease the corruption in your country. Okay, so next speaker is ready. So Ines, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you for coming to me. Greetings from Czech Republic, Prague. I'm here for a couple of days, again, in one of our projects. So as far as I see, the presentation is on your screens as well. So yes, my role, my task here for next 20 or less minutes is to share how a civil society organization, or NGO, as we call in Latvian usually, can work on promoting transparency and fighting corruption. In a couple of sentences, our organization I am representing, we are part of international movement, Transparency International, and also our colleagues in Ukraine are in Ukraine, Transparency International Ukraine chapter. So we have joint actions from time to time, also with colleagues not only in Europe or other countries, but also with Ukrainian colleagues. Our organization in Latvia, we are working already for 26 years, but Transparency International for more than 30. So And here in next slides, I will show you specific examples how our organization in our everyday work, according to both Transparency International strategy for 10 years and our strategy for 5 years, are actually working on this task for promoting transparency and fighting corruption. Our areas of action actually are quite wide, however specific. As you can see here, we are working on political integrity and also business integrity. I will then later elaborate why this is a very important area for us as well. For the last couple of years, we are also closely monitoring and working with local authorities, because we see that at the municipal level, there are also a lot of work to be done on this topic, and especially on public resources, public procurement, because 40% of public procurement is at municipal level. And then you can imagine that if 40% of public money is spent at local level by local authorities, then that's a huge risk as well. Internally, in previous presentation, I already touched upon whistleblowing, but what we also do is, of course, anti-money laundering, cryptocurrencies. We see the next threat to us, and open data and civic participation and corruption perceptions index as at the end. I will also shortly touch upon, as Zinta mentioned. So what we understand by political integrity, and here I would like to tackle the aspect of from the business or NGOs. For last years, it's already actually 5 years ago, we started to work very closely in the parliament on developing law on transparency of interest representation, or how it's actually called in other countries, it's lobbying law, or transparency of lobbying. And this will be, yes, on the one hand, we have the law already operating, but what we see, what our organization is monitoring and working on, we see that only 20% is in action, actually. And so we are closely monitoring, asking questions to our institutions. What about developments of this law, developing the registration and declaration system, and when the law actually will work on its full scale. What we see here that for example, the code of ethics of lobbyists is very important. So we're developing also the code of ethics, because one thing is you can write on laws, that level of documents, but other thing is also the good governance or good principles of everyday work, and that's the code of ethics level. And I will touch upon that also later in my other examples, because what you also heard in the previous presentation, yes, the one part is like what's written in the laws, but the second part is this internal system on risk mitigation and good practices and codes of ethics, etc. What other thing we are doing in political integrity, for example, we have also developed that based on open data. Together, the similar examples that are in other countries as well. The tool where everyone can follow or check the information, who is the largest or any donor to political parties. And this is about political party financing. And again, at one point I had an idea that, is it so, before the state funding for political parties came in a couple of years ago, is it true, this Pareto principle, that 20% of donors actually give 80% of money to political party? We checked data available, and yes, mainly differs from party to party, but mainly that was true, that around 20% of donors gave 80% of donations for political party. And this is also the question how the decision making in the parties then actually is working. But that was before the state funding came into force. What's for local authorities? And this also, what we started to work a couple of years ago, it was also based on not only citizens' interests in the municipality, how transparent is the municipality, but also for the companies. Like if you would like to choose in which municipality you would like to open your new business, then that's also the tool everyone can use. So what we did, we developed a methodology, assessed every municipality in Latvia, developed a toolkit, and of course did some recommendations for government. But here you can see the results of our action. By only publishing results, by assessing every website of municipality, we see how the situation for those 3-4 years has changed in municipalities. So if 3 years ago, this information municipalities were publishing on their websites was like, as you see, orange yellow, not so good. Then this year, the newest data we will publish in a couple of weeks. We see the situation has slightly changed. So this is also an example how it can be done. And we are developing similar tool, similar methodology for private sector, for business. We won't assess ourselves because business companies, we have like too many in Latvia operating, but self-assessment tool for companies, how they can assess themselves, how transparent they are, and how good at internal regulations, policies they are, as also connected with the previous presentation. So, and here I am jumping to our business integrity activities. We have launched initiative Zero Tolerance Against Corruption. And for that, in this activity, we are developing this tool I mentioned. So if like 5 years ago, when I joined our organization, my colleagues were telling, no company is ready to say a word corruption. They are too afraid. They are afraid because if they will say that they are against corruption, then other society stakeholders will think that, then you have a corruption, you have this problem in your company. But that perception has slightly changed. So companies are joining our initiative. What they see that, yes, they would want and agree to our principles that company is doing everything they can internally in their organization to reduce corruption risks, to strengthen this good governance principles, etc. And also, second part of that, very important, is that they also ask this for their clients, maybe not always, but those partners they are cooperating with. So this is like a very small action. We don't have a lot of resources here, but at least some small principle how we can start working in that direction as well. And here, as I mentioned, we are developing and will this month launch a tool, self-assessment tool with some 33 questions, important policies or principles we have listed for the companies who should have this. But I will come back to the business integrity topic also in other examples. As I mentioned, managing public resources and public procurement, it's also a very important part because where the money is, like if you would like to find the corruption, follow the money. So here we are. And one strong tool developed by Transparency International already 10, 15 years ago is integrity, which comes that. And what Latvia is now doing, our state chancellery government, they are organizing how Integrity Pact will be mandatory in large EU-funded investments after some 3-4 years. And what we are doing now, our organization, we are piloting this integrity tool in 2 municipalities and training organizations. And here the business part is that Integrity Pact is actually the kind of agreement, a pact between, for example, municipality or government institution, who is this one giving the money, between NGO, who is monitoring the public procurement, this specific one, and then the business, the company, who is then working in this public procurement to be implemented. So this triangle makes this integrity pact, and the NGO, by monitoring the procurement, all the documents and works. Here our sees that yes, everything is going according to the good governance principle, according to the law, and also the society is involved and explained. So we have a couple of tools here as well, how to monitor public procurements with red flags, Integrity Watch EU. You can see the short link under those two pictures in the middle. And what we see also in this, we also from time to time monitor by ourselves without this integrity pact, some procurements in municipalities, and then I usually like to make those infographics when we show what was the process of specific public procurement and where the problems arose. So what else we are doing, as I touched upon, virtual assets or cryptocurrencies. That's the regulation is coming in from EU in Latvia as well. However, what we have done, we have developed recommendations based on international experience, going to other partner countries, Europe. We have developed recommendations for our Ministry of Finance, who is responsible for that, how actually we should regulate virtual assets, not only those who are service providers here, licensing them, but like to look broader on the topic. Yes, unfortunately, without any success yet in the law or draft law, but still we have good understanding, and we will continue monitoring following how the EU regulation is transposed in Latvian regulation, and if we will see an opportunity to come in with our recommendations in the Parliament, then we will do that as well. Open data are very important, I assume, for business as well. Maybe not to acknowledge so much, but what we do, we have organized a couple of hackathons, because what we see that yes, we have a lot of open data available. For example, 800 data sets on our data portal, government data portal. Some of them updated even maybe daily, some monthly. Depends on the data. But the next question is how we use those data. Do we actually analyze them, cross-check, and etc.? So this is also what we are trying, at least a little step-by-step boost. We're organizing such hackathons. And we have some very interesting conclusions and examples out of that. But I encourage not to use also, in your country, that field of the data, and think about that. What else we do? We work also with our law enforcement agencies, and one thing is, yes, organizing different public events, public discussions in that way to encourage the discussion or give some support or raise discussions on some specific problems, as International Anti-Corruption Day Conference with KNAB, our anti-corruption agency, but also we have a really great example how we already for 3 years are cooperating with our prosecutors office on developing a code of ethics for prosecutors, organizing seminars for that, and also working with employees of the prosecution office and organizing trainings for them. Why I'm mentioning that? Code of ethics trainings, that's very important to repeat once a year, because it's very important, like, again, to follow the suggestions. Also, we heard in the previous presentation that it's not enough that you have a code of ethics developed and that's on your shelf, nice, check, done. It's very important that you have very practical situations-based, scenario-based trainings for every employee yearly. And similar suggestion is also with whistleblowing. Our organization has worked for years, and also in the Parliament and government when the whistleblowing law was developed, on drafting the law and also monitoring how actually it's implemented. For last couple of years, what we see by doing every year short research on how the whistleblowing law actually is working at municipalities, at business companies, we see that actually it's not, again, the formal situation. We have nice law, really great. We are like the champions in the European Union at that. But the practical situation, we see a lot should be done still, because no sanctions for companies if they are not implementing the whistleblowing system, etc. So what do? We develop different guidelines for a whistleblower, and also for the person who is working with whistleblowers reports, and also organizing trainings from time to time by explaining. What we see in the last couple of months, when we are getting information from courts, even courts, judges don't have full understanding on the whistleblowing concept and protection of whistleblower. So we see that a lot should be done here. Yes, we have a nice law written. That could be a great example for others as well. But the question is how we on the daily basis work on that. And our suggestion, similar to the codes of ethics trainings yearly, is that also whistleblowing trainings yearly for employees, for every employee is very important. Because what we see that the corruption is like hiding, and it's only those specifically involved employees who are very close to this corruption situation in the company can report on this wrongdoing. And it's very important that we encourage them, that we on our everyday basis show that that's part of our culture in the company or institution, and that's not like some wrong thing to report on the possible wrongdoing. What else we do? We also work with citizen engagement and civic participation by organizing some drawing contests or voting on anti-corruption or corruption events in that specific year or something like that. But of course, it is not possible to do with our partners, and we have a lot of institutions we are cooperating on our everyday basis with Parliament, of course, ministries, different ministries, financial intelligence unit, state audit service, prosecutors, also anti-corruption agency, and many others. And of course, our projects are financed by different local and international organizations, and we are only project-based organization. 90% of our money funding is coming from projects. But here, just to finish in a couple of minutes my presentation, again, coming back to our initiative for business zero tolerance against corruption, and also many other initiatives, what we see, of course, is data-based. Our recommendations and activities are data-based. As you saw also before, corruption perception index, yes, this is the situation all around the world. Yes, Europe is the most cleanest country out of the corruption, or Canada, US, Australia, New Zealand is the very almost the top three performer here, but a lot should be done still around the world, and of course in Latvia. As my saying is that the problems rise, or you can reduce problems if you compare yourself. And if we in Latvia compare ourselves with Europe average or our neighbors, Estonia, Lithuania, then they see that we are not such a good performer yet. So what we do, we have analyzed in detail the data, how the Latvian result is not really made, but calculated. So if the average of EU is 64 points, the higher the point, the cleanest the country is, then in Latvia we finally have 60, before we are lacking below that. But still, we have a lot to do, and so we analyzed the data. As you see, the progress is not so nice, and Estonia is like really far away from Latvia, Lithuania. The $1 million question, of course, would be what made their progress 10, 11 years ago. But what we see, the courage is also to what we ask, more courage from our government and the institutions, not only parliament, because with laws everything is fine, to actually fight corruption. And what we see that we don't see in the government declaration that yes, our top 3, 4, 5 priorities to fight corruption. So coming back to recommendations, yes, we are coming out every year with our specific recommendations based on the data, how the result for Latvia is calculated. The result for Latvia and other countries is based on 9 to 13 different other researchers. It's not like asking people on the streets, what do you think about corruption? No, it's specific researchers, specific experts, reports on the country situation. And so calculated out of that, the methodology specifically having TA, then the result is calculated for every country. What we see by analyzing those detailed results, that one of the main parts is that also we need to promote business or encourage business to be more active or even proactive in their efforts to prevent and detect corruption. And this is why we have came up with this initiative Zero Tolerance Against Corruption, also doing our many other activities. So yes, thank you for your attention. This was in short, based on very specific examples, what we are doing in our organization fighting corruption, and of course giving something positive in the opposite, boosting transparency.
Ines, thank you very much for your presentation showing up the statistics of European Union and Baltic states as well. For me, it was very, very interesting that I saw that for Latvia we also have some issues where what we can be better and continue to work. But I think more or less people already acknowledge this and start to improve their attitude against corruption. And so far, at the moment, I don't see any kind of comments in the chat. So therefore, I would like to sum up this webinar and give very huge thank you to Ines Tauriņa about this very interesting presentation. Additionally, I would like to give a short announcement about cybersecurity, because Latvian Chamber of Commerce and Industry is partner in the project C Sector, which is financed by Erasmus Plus program. And in the framework of the Project C Sector, we have developed internationally also training program for companies, for small and medium enterprises about cybersecurity. And the training will start very soon, and it will be provided in English and will be free of charge for every interested person. So my colleague Veronica will share information to you, so if you feel free to apply and participate in these online trainings about cybersecurity, which are free of charge, and as I said, and the course is finalized by Erasmus Plus program. So, and then again, I would like to say thank you for Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Latvia and Embassy of the United States in Kiev for co-financing this project, Latvia 2. This is our pre-final webinar, so one more is upcoming during the upcoming month, and then more or less the project is already in final phase. Please follow the information about invitation to participate in the closing webinar of this series, and thank you for your attention, and see you very soon. Goodbye.